or the file that we're going to need today is actually called loops and debugging, and what we're going to do is look at a problem that is contained in that file. So go ahead and open that up. I will offer opportunities to pause this and allow you to actually do the work as we're going through it or think it through. So look for those. What we're doing in this file is we're practicing writing a program. And writing a program involves understanding what's happening, what you need to do, what your ultimate goal is, what you have to work with, and what order it should go in. And in programming, that's really, really important because you have to consider how the computer thinks. And so we're gonna kind of try to get that across to you today, and hopefully get you on a path to where you can think through homework 6 with a minimum of trouble here. So we're going to go ahead and open this up. You should see in front of you on the video the worksheet that we're working with, and hopefully nothing will be cut off. On the left we have a list of sales reps, and if you'll notice, those sales reps have a named range, so that's something that we have to work with. Next to it, we have a whole list in column B of reports that actually have been uploaded. The goal of the problem is that we will write a sub that's going to compare the names in the sales rep named range to the uploaded report names and create a list of sales reps who have not uploaded a report. So that's our goal, ultimate goal. And so there are a few things that we want to think about before we get started on that. First of all, think about what values and objects you have to work with, or that you need to work with. Because the very first thing you want to do is set up your variable list. You may go back and add to it from time to time as you think of new things, but maybe it's a good idea to start off with that, because those are going to be the pieces of the puzzle, essentially. So one thing to consider, one thing to do in order to plan this out, is to start thinking about what you need this program to do. And I'm going to kind of walk through it. First, I need to look and see, is there a list? Because my job is to compare the uploaded report names to the sales rep names. Is there a list of uploaded reports? Sure there is. Yes. So therefore, I can start my job. So Brules, however you pronounce this, .pdf, does this person exist here? Now immediately the human mind will say, yeah, there it is, right there, number 2 in the row, okay? And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put this person in the list, okay? This is a person who has uploaded a report. But see, that's not the goal, is it? That's what a human being would do. And the goal for us, though, is to find the people who have not. So instead, I'm going to start over and I'm going to go, okay, Brules PDF, yeah, there it is. Cadigan, yep, there's Cadigan. Chew, yep, there's Chew. Funk, there's Funk. Hines, oh look, there's Hines. Kardikahadi, up, there's Kardikahadi. No action needed. Okrazizik, up, there's Okrazizik. Yes, that person has uploaded. No action taken. Well, wait a minute. That's not doing me any good. I'm just seeing the people who are there. Well, our goal really isn't to look at the uploaded reports first. What we want to do is see who the sales reps are and see if they are in that list. So we want to go in the opposite direction. So again, thinking it through is going to be really important. So in this case, now I'm going to start through and say, all right, bar log, up. There's Barlog. So Barlog does appear in the list. Brulez. Yep, they appear in the list. Cadigan. Yep. Chew. Yep. Darbro. Darbro. Nope. So if Darbro doesn't appear in the list, I need to start a new list, and that new list is going to be people who have not uploaded a report. The following people have not uploaded a report, and that first one was Darbro. Okay, so that's how my human process would go. First, I would look and see if there are actually reports. There are. Now I need to see if all my sales reps have uploaded a report. It's clear that they haven't because the list is significantly shorter, so I need to go through name by name and compare and see who is not there. Eberhardt, not there. So I'm going to add Eberhardt to the list. Funk, yep, Funk's there. Hayes. Hayes is not there. So you see what I'm doing? I'm creating a list after doing a comparison to see who has not uploaded a report. My ultimate goal then is to have this thing show up as a message box. In other words, I don't want to write it to a worksheet. I just want to punch a button and see a message box that's going to tell me this information. Again, we're not interacting with the worksheet in the sense that we're going to be making the list here. We're actually going to be using programming principles to get that list to show up. So let's translate things sort of into words. Okay. So we've got the named range sales rep. We've got uploaded reports appearing in cells, and from time to time you also have to think about, is this the only time? Is this the only list that I have to deal with? When does it end? Will it go longer? Will it go shorter? What's going to happen here? So we need to consider that this has to be extremely flexible, and so writing things to specific cells may or may not be useful. But the first thing that we want to do is consider the first name. We're going to go to the uploaded reports area. We're going to check the first cell. If there's a match, what do we do? Well, we can just quit checking report names because we found a match for that name. Okay. If there's no match, what do? Then we continue. We keep checking the names. And we keep checking the names until we reach, at this point, the very end. So check, all the way down to the very end till we find it, and then we can stop. If the first report name was not a match, move to the second report name, etc., etc. So that's our second step. Now we go to the second name. We want to repeat the same process of checking the report name. So we're going to keep going. Okay. So here's the issue. We need to work through this entire list, and as we work through for each element in this list, we need to check each element in this list and compare the two. You see what's happening here? Do you see what I just said? For each name here, we're going to go through and check each name here. So you can see what's happening, right? We start here, and we need to loop through these names. For each name that we're looking at here, we need to go over here and loop through each cell doing the comparison that we need to do. Okay. So that's pretty clear, right? It's a loop within a loop. Those are always fun. Finally, we're going to be thinking about what happens at the end. If we checked every report name against the current rep name and no match has been found, then we need to write that person's name to a list. Okay? This is the bare bones of what you need to be doing. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go over to our VBE And I'd like you to go to the place where there is a sub called Missing Reports. I believe for you it's in Test Loops. That's where my completed one is, but I'm going to work through one of these with you. So basically what I've done in my comment is I've explained exactly what it is that needs to happen in this sub. Okay, that's what your comments are for. Again, I want to emphasize that you should comment extensively as you write these programs. So the very first thing, I'm going to kind of give you a little thing to go on here. The first thing you want to do is declare variables. All right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of give you some opportunities to think about, take a few minutes, and make a list of what it is you need to do as far as variables go. And remember, you're going to be dealing with objects and values. And so what do you want to have happen? And what kinds of things do you need that are going to hold values? And what kind of things are you going to need in order to work with objects? So take a few minutes and do that. Okay. The next thing you need to think about is the steps. So the first step we decided was we need to loop through the sales reps' names in the range sales reps, as I do believe they're called. Let's check. Yep, sales underscore reps. Okay. The next thing we want to do is loop through each report's name. Okay. So there's our loop within a loop. I'm going to get a big error if I forget my apostrophe. Okay. And then just another little thing, if there is no match, keep checking. Okay, so we're going to loop through that inner loop until we find a match. If there is no match, we go back to this loop. We end it and go back to this loop. Okay, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to consider what happens next. After going through each report for any rep name, okay, what we want to think about is that if there is no matching report name, then we're going to have to tell or report this to the user. So if there is no match found in the reports list, report this to the user. So now you're going to think about how you're going to do all this stuff. Now, let's go back to the variables here. I'm going to walk through my variable list as I think through this. First of all, I know I have some things to consider. One of them is I want the range that contains the report names, because I need to look at that. I need the container for the report names, and that's going to be a cell. I need the value in the report name, in the report's name cell. Sorry. So if you kind of go in here and go through there, here's our beginning of our list. The range that contains the report names, I'm going to dim uploaded report names as range object variable. Remember what we said about those, or about the loops we've talked about. Some of our loops are going to be really useful there. I'm going to dim this one, the container for the report names, as the report cell. as another range, another object variable. So there you go there. And now I'm going to go here and say the report name, report name as string, because what's contained in that cell is a string. So that's my first set. I'm going to go down here and start working on the range that contains the sales rep's name, which is sales reps. I need sales rep cell, I need the cell that contains an individual name for purposes of comparison. And I also need the value. So sales rep. So I'm going to go through and dim all of these. So we're going to call that sales rep names as range. And then sales rep cell as range. And sales rep as string. Okay? So there's set number 2. So those are the 2 things that we're going to use to kind of go through and compare. Okay? Now, I have a couple other things that I need to deal with. Number 1, I need to deal with what I'm going to tell my user. Okay? How am I going to provide that list? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to set a nice little variable that holds the list of unfound, I don't know what else to put it, reports not found, and that's it. So I'm going to do something that holds a list, okay? So let's call it, since we want to give it as a message, let's call it the message. So dim message as string. We'll talk about how to use that in a second, okay? So then again, we also need something else going on here. We need a way to determine what's going to hold the value of a report that hasn't been found or a report that has been found. Okay? So, did you find it? Yes or no? We need to be able to hold a value, true or false, yes or no, in order to determine if that name belongs on the list or not. So I'm going to give another variable here that's going to hold the situation, basically. So, has the report been found? Yes or no? Okay. And we remember the data type for this. What is it? I call this variable report found as Boolean. Remember, we need a Boolean field. So this is going to return a value of yes or no, true or false, whatever it is in your head that means yes or no. Okay? And so there we go. We've got a list of things that we can use. Now I'm going to also give you an idea of some other things that we need to think about. Number 1, that we haven't thought about. Before we start looping through the sales reps' names, what has to happen? Do we want to even do this if there are no actual lists? And I want to bring up an important point here. There are a couple of ways you might think about to do this. Now let's say that you recall in class we did the selection of the range using xldown.rows.count, and we looked at how many rows there actually were that contained values. Well, we think that is a really great idea. However, if there are no values in each of those cells, it's going to select everything. And further, it's not going to count anything because nothing has a value. And so you're going to end up getting an error. So if you try that, you can go ahead and try that as a learning experience. You can try that, and if you get the error, you'll see what I'm talking about. And if you take a look at what's happening on the worksheet, you'll see what I'm talking about. Why? Well, let's go back to the worksheet. If I have nothing here, let's say I move everything off here just to see. Okay. Move everything off here. Then I'm going to start my range in B1 and do XL down, right? Well, what's going to happen is it's just going to select the whole row because there's nothing else to do. And it won't like that many counts that it has to do. So what we're going to do instead, because we can't actually say that if the row count is 0 because of this, what we're going to do is we're going to go down here and check at least the first 2 cells. And if those first 2 cells are empty, then we're going to exit the sub, okay? So one of the first things that we want to think about doing, and let me go back here, is we want to check for the list. Is there one? Check the first 2 cells. If they are empty, then, and we're going to use this command called exit sub. And what that does is that takes us out. Okay, we finish. We check for that condition, and then if we meet the condition, in other words, if those cells are empty, then we don't have to do anymore. We quit. And then, once we quit, we want to tell the user that there are no uploaded reports. Okay? So that's one thing to consider. Another thing to consider. So, I think we're pretty happy with the looping through, the loop within a loop. Loop through, pick the first sales rep, and then down here, look through each and every report, see if there's a match. If there is, true, do nothing. Otherwise, go back and do it again. We go and find out until we find there is no match. If that's false, remember there's our Boolean value here, then we have to go back and add it to the list. Okay, remember our variables up here. Now I'm going to flip right back to this list of sales reps and this list of uploaded reports. I'm going to drag them back over where they should be. You know in your mind that we are never going to find a match. And why is that? Well, sadly, each of these reports, even though they're named for the last name, also have a PDF at the end, .pdf. So we're never going to find a match. Intuitively, we know that we can just forget about. We're going to do a match to any part of the word. But the computer doesn't know that, and so what we're going to have to do is do some work to actually make sure that we have something to match so that we don't just find no match ever. So we don't tell the user, hey, they all uploaded reports, and therefore have an empty message. Okay, so what we want to do is consider the report name. Okay, so report name as string in our variables will include the PDF. However, I do believe we need to do an operation here that gives us a variation of that. In other words, we have to do some sort of operation that excludes the .pdf. You can see where those text functions are coming in, can't you? So we're going to call this mod report or modified report name. Okay, so modified report name as string, and this holds the value of the modified. Okay, so now I have this great list of variables that I can use. All right, so somewhere in here, I'm going to take the sales rep name, and then I'm going to loop through each report name. So somewhere in here, I also have to strip the PDF off of the report name, and then go through and do the comparison. Okay. All right. Now, as we go through this loop, I'm going to loop, go through a loop within a loop. If we find a match, then what we need to do is the last action that we need to do, if we don't find a match, is to write the name of the match, or the not match, sorry, of the missing person into the message. So we need to consider where to do that. So here's where we're going to find a match within the report list. At some point, if there's no match, keep checking. If there is, write So when I'm talking about if there is no match there, no match for the first cell, keep checking. If there is no match overall, then write to the message. Okay. So what we're going to do is write the value that we get, that rep name that doesn't match, to the string message, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. Okay. And to do that, I'm just going to go down here and type this in for you. And then I'm probably going to be really cruel and make you try to write this on your own. First of all, just your hint, we did say that we're going to use a text function. Obviously, we're going to use the left function. Let me just tell you about the modified report. Left, and then there's another function called instr. And instr in the string is we're going to go pull out the basic string. We don't have to do any crazy stuff. We can pull out the string that is in the cell that we're using as a value to go match. So the rep name is something that we can to use to pull out. And we're going to stop at the dot. So go ahead and see that. And then the stop point is the dot. We're going to pull out the string in the report name from the dot up to the dot, and then because the dot's included, the ending character is included, we need to subtract 1. Okay, so just to clarify, because I don't think that was very clear, we're going to start from the left, and then we're going to pull out this using the report name, using the use the report name, stopping at the dot, only pull out the first letters up to and including the dot, and then we're going to subtract 1 to remove the dot. Okay. Then we're going to compare the names. Sorry, that middle part was a little bit muddled, but I think that if you look at the notes, you'll kind of get what's happening here. So we go take a sales rep name from column 1, which happens to be the sales rep's named range. we're going to loop through each report name in the second column, column B. Before we can do that, we have to strip the PDF off the report name using left and in string, and then we're going to compare the names. If we have a true, if there is no match, we keep checking. If there is no match overall, we then write to the message and continue back up to the first loop for the second sales rep's name. Okay. There is going to be the final message box. We don't need a variable for that, we just shoot the message box. And what we're going to do is make sure that we have an appropriate format for message. Okay, let me just kind of talk about this for a second, and I'm not going to put it right where it needs to be. I'm just going to come down here in a comment and write this for you. We need to set message equal to something. Right now we set message equal to nothing. But we do have a message as a string. And so what message is going to be is that variable that we call message and whatever the sales rep is who doesn't match. I'm just going to throw that all in one word just so it looks like a variable, but that isn't a variable. And then we need to break it to different lines for each value, so we're going to use, VB. I can't type. I really can't type. CR. Okay, so we're going to concatenate the message all the way down, and this is what it's going to look like. So later on you'll need to use that. Let me also point out that's the end of it, but before we can ever start this whole thing, I'm going to make sure that the message is empty so that that's clear at the outset, and we're not going to add to message until we find no match or until the Boolean value is false. Go ahead and take a stab at this, trying to write through using each of these loops and see what you do. Okay. One of the things that you might want to do is write a few things and then, like for example, might try the loop within the loop first before you do anything else. And remember that we haven't talked about this, but within all of these things you have certain steps as well, such as defining ranges and defining and setting to values all of those variables that we dimmed up here. So all of these guys need to be set to some sort of value. Just like we did, we're going to do that with the message. I wanted to take you through the message. But each one of these things you have to say uploaded report names equals report cell, or sorry, set uploaded report names to, and then what it is as the range, where that range begins and ends, etc. So you need to remember, you need to do that. So you might want to go in there and think about that as well. Another suggestion is that you take this and sort of sketch it out on paper, maybe write out the code before you actually start doing it inside of the VBE. So there you go. What I'll do is at the very end of all this, I'm going to take you through, and I'm actually going to put this little report into a document for you, and then you can use this to kind of look at, and I'll upload this document to week 11 day 2. Okay. And I'll see you on Tuesday. Don't forget to have this done by Tuesday, by the way, to just kind of go through it and look and see what it is. We're going to quickly go through it in class before we start on the next topic. Also check the calendar for any videos and other helpful hints that you'll have. For reading, go to the resources page for the next topic and take a look at the walk and back chapters and or any lynda.com videos that might prepare you for what we're about to do. All right, see you Tuesday.